here today. He's going to give the workshop. He's the Director of Ethics Education and Professional Standard for the CFA Institute. After his workshop, I will give an introduction to the Ethics Challenge, key dates. I'll go through the rubric and the score sheet, some details about the rules, very quick review of the Code of Ethics and Standards of Professional Conduct, the ethical decision-making framework. Well, at that point, it might not make sense because we'll already have had Michael McMillan's workshop. So then just go through the teams, the mentors, and a very brief overview of the case study. All right. So this is what we're going to do today in this Ethics Challenge workshop. And as I say, it's an honor and a privilege to have Michael McMillan with us today. He is the Director of Ethics Education and Standard Professional Conduct with the CFA Institute. Take it away, Mike.
All right. Well, good afternoon, students, and welcome to this ethics workshop and discussion. I think you all will enjoy the ethics challenge and the case for the ethics challenge. So today in this workshop, I'm going to give you a little bit of grounding in ethics. So if someone would allow me to share their screen, oh, there it is right there, we will begin. Now, also, let me just say this workshop is designed to be interactive. So if you have any questions or comments, please don't hesitate to either unmute yourself and ask them, or you can place your questions either in English or in Spanish in the chat box. Professor Heber will look at them and translate them for me. So let us get started. All right, this should be fun because what I'm going to do this afternoon is to place you into some real life ethical dilemmas that investment professionals have told me they have faced. And then I'm going to ask you to vote on what you would do if you were in a similar situation. So let us get started here. All right, so here are a couple of facts about the CFA program. Oops, sorry. The CFA charter was first awarded in 1963. At the time of the first exams during that year, there were 284 candidates from the US and Canada who sat for the exam, and the pass rate was like 96%, something high like that. 94%, excuse me. Well, fast forward to 2019, which was the last year that we gave the exam on a live basis. There were more than 350,000 candidates from all over the world who sat for the exam. So why has the CFA program grown so quickly in such a relatively short period of time? And I can basically tell you that it's due to the ethics component in the exam. Ethics represents 10 to 15% of each level of the CFA exam, and there are three levels. There are three levels of the exam. And then once you pass all three exams and become a CFA charter holder, then we are required every year to sign a statement or an oath, if you will, saying that we have lived up to and followed the CFA Code of Ethics and Standards of Professional Conduct. So the CFA charter is thought of about ethics when it comes to employers. This is why employers enjoy hiring CFA charter holders, because they not only know that we have studied ethics through three levels of the CFA exam, They also know that every year we have to sign this pledge or oath saying that we have lived up to our code and standards. Now, of course, that doesn't guarantee that every CFA charter holder is going to be ethical, but it certainly increases the probability. So I show you this chart, this slide, only to emphasize the global nature of the CFA program. So if you have a desire to work in New York, London, Paris, Hong Kong, Abu Dhabi in the investment industry, then having a CFA charter is going to help you achieve that goal. Why? Because the CFA charter and the content of the CFA examinations is the same all over the world. So when you talk to or interview with a prospective employer who is a CFA charter holder, they will automatically know what you know. I will say also that one of the strongest growing regions for CFA candidates and charter holders is in Latin America. I've recently done workshops at universities in Argentina, in Uruguay, in Colombia, and Peru. And I've also, besides Mexico, of course, and I've also worked with a lot of the largest employers in these countries who, again, view a CFA charter very favorably. So now that I've done my commercial for the CFA Institute and the CFA program, let's talk about ethics. First, I want to mention something about our mission statement. We had the CFA Institute had the same mission statement for 45 years, i.e., from 1963 until 2008, when the global financial crisis occurred. So prior to 2008, our mission was to lead the investment profession globally by promoting the highest standards of ethics, education, and professional excellence, period. Then the global financial crisis occurred. And as you may know, as a result of the financial crisis, there were many people who lost their jobs, even more people who lost their homes, and even more people who lost their life savings. So we began to think about this at CFA Institute, and we think and we believe that if we can raise the educational level of investment professionals in our industry, and if we can increase the ethical behavior of investment professionals in our industry, that will ultimately benefit society. So that's why we added that last line to our mission statement in 2008, for the ultimate benefit of society. So this is what we mean by ethical behavior. It's doing the right thing when no one else is watching, even when doing the wrong thing is legal. You see, there's a big difference between the law and ethics. The law represents the minimum standard that we all must follow. Ethics represents a much higher standard. So there are a lot of things that we can do in the investment industry that are legal. However, some of these activities may not be ethical. Again, this is one of the reasons why employers view CFA charter holders in such a positive light. They know we can't just live up to that minimum standard. We must live up to a much higher standard. So I told you what ethical behavior is. This is what unethical behavior is. It's knowingly making a decision that harms others or that one feels, believes, or knows to be irresponsible or wrong. Think about that. So, one of the things I like to ask people is, why should you act ethically? Does anyone want to answer that question? Why should you act ethically? Well, I do have to say this. When people respond to this question, they always say, well, I don't want to get in trouble. I don't want to get fired. I don't want to go to jail. This is why I act ethically. But really, I believe that that's actually the wrong motivation for you to act ethically. And here's a quote which I believe says it all. It says, when I do good, I feel good. When I do bad, I feel bad. That is my religion. So, what this is saying is quite simple. You should want to act ethically because it makes you feel good. And when you don't act ethically, you should feel bad. This means that you should act ethically, not because of some externally imposed reason like the law or jail or getting fired. It should come from inside. You should want to do the right thing. And I think most people do, by the way. So, one of the things I always ask students is, what do investment professionals do? And I think it's very important that you understand what our day-to-day role is, because oftentimes how investment professionals are portrayed, either on TV or in the movies, doesn't accurately describe what we do on a daily basis. So, first of all, our primary role as investment professionals is to communicate knowledge and information to our clients. You see, investing and financial markets, many clients feel are very, very confusing and they're intimidated by it. So, our primary goal is to take information that we know about how financial markets and investment products work and explain it to our clients in a way that they understand and can appreciate. Our second goal is to cause positive change in our clients' lives. Clients come to us and they have goals or dreams. They want to save for retirement. They want to save to buy a new home or to send their children to university. Well, as investment professionals, it's our job to help them achieve those goals. And how do we do it? By instructing and guiding them. We are going to create a roadmap for our clients that they can follow with the end destination, their goals or dreams. And we're going to check in with them on a quarterly basis or at least annually to see how they're following that roadmap and if we can provide any additional assistance. Lastly, we need to exercise the special skills that we've developed from our education and from our training solely in the best interest of our clients. So these are the primary functions or obligations of investment professionals. Does anybody have any comment or questions about what I've said? All right. So at CFA Institute, this is how we define ethics. Ethics begins with education. So as an investment professional, obviously you need to know about finance and investing and accounting and economics, but you also need to know the laws, rules, and regulations in the countries that you're doing business. So ethics has got to begin with education. Equally as important, ethics requires trust. And trust is earned, not given. How do we earn our clients' trust? By being honest, by having integrity, by being of good character, and by adopting a stewardship mindset towards our clients. And let me explain this stewardship mindset. Here's an analogy to this. Think about the last time you went to the doctor. You went to the doctor because you either weren't feeling well or some part of your body hurt. So you go to the doctor, you explain to him or her what's bothering you. They then ask you a series of questions, give you a checkup, and at the very end, they sit you down, look you in the eye, and tell you exactly what you need to do to get better. Remember that moment? Now, as that doctor is telling you what you needed to do, was there ever a doubt in your mind that what that doctor was telling you was not in your best interest? Probably not. You didn't have that doubt. Why? Because we entrust our health and body to our doctors, and in return, we expect them to carefully and responsibly manage our health solely in our best interest. Well, as investment professionals, we are stewards of our clients' money. They are entrusting their money to us, and in return, they expect us to carefully and responsibly manage their money solely in their best interest. So, as doctors are stewards of our health and body, we, as investment professionals, are stewards of our clients' money. So, what's the goal of this workshop? It's threefold. The first is just to encourage you to become more conscious and aware of your own thoughts and behaviors so that hopefully you will be more likely to notice and act upon ethical issues before they become a problem. We also want you to recognize that ethical dilemmas are a normal and predictable part of most jobs. Here's an example. Are you familiar with stockbrokers? Is there a specific name for stockbrokers in Mexico, Professor Heber?
The Casa de Bolsa.
Great, thank you. And how are stockbrokers paid? Anybody want to venture a guess? Well, stockbrokers are generally paid by commission, which means that a stockbroker doesn't get paid unless the client purchases what he or she is selling. And this actually represents a conflict of interest because let's suppose it's at the end of April, which is about 15 days away. So it's the end of April, you get a call from your stockbroker. And your stockbroker says, Mr. or Mrs. Jones, I have a great product that I think you should invest in. Now, here's the question. Is that stockbroker recommending that product to me or Mr. Jones, whatever, because it's in my best interest, i.e. the client's best interest, or is that stockbroker recommending that product because he or she is looking for the commission, because it is at the end of the month, they need that commission to perhaps pay for rent, pay for their car, or other things. So when you're paid on commission, you face this conflict of interest on a regular basis. I do want to say, however, that just because you are paid on commission, either as a stockbroker or in other activities, doesn't mean that you are unethical. It just means that you face this conflict of interest on a regular basis. So lastly, what we're going to do is discuss some approaches for dealing with ethical issues. And by the way, if anybody has any comments or questions, please do not hesitate to ask. So let's get started with some of these cases. To begin with, get out your cell phone, your iPad. You can use your computer and go to this website, slido.com. You can type in www.slido.com, and the passcode is THEM. Now, it's not case sensitive, so the THEM doesn't have to be all capitals or small letters. Just type it in. Okay. And please let me know if anybody has any problem logging in. All right, so here is our first case. Does everybody, any problems, anyone?
We're good.
Yeah, good. All right, thank you. All right, so here's the first case. It's a true story. I'll tell you what happened afterwards. So your boss who hired you and has mentored you for the past 3 years is being unfairly let go because of office politics. As the sole support of her family, she is concerned about finding another job. So 2 weeks before she is scheduled to leave, she places a stack of files on your desk and asks you to copy them because she will use them in her job search. The files contain research reports that she wrote, marketing presentations containing her performance record, and spreadsheet models that she created. What do? Do you A, copy the files, B, refuse to copy the files, C, only copy the research reports that she wrote, or D, only copy the spreadsheet models she created? So I'll give you a moment to think about it. We'll look at how the voting is going. Okay. All right. All right, I'll switch back to the presentation. Now we have 51 people, so I expect this number who's voting is going to get higher. Again, for those of you who need to, the password is THEM. The website is www.slido.com. All right, look at those things coming. All right. All right. Okay. Oh, those numbers are coming in. All right. So it looks like 58% of the people refused to copy the files. 33% said C, only copy the research reports that she wrote, and 9% said copy the files. So so the question is there an ethical issue here? Does anybody want to say, do you think there is an ethical issue here? Let's go back to the case. Well, in fact, there is an ethical issue here. And the issue is that although your boss produced the research reports and created the spreadsheet models, these are property of the firm, not her own property, because she was paid to create these reports and models. So not only can she not take them with her, you should not be copying them to enable her to take them with her, because you're helping her, in effect, steal company property. All right? So here's the point, though, is most people would copy the files. Why? Because this is your boss, and she's still going to be your boss for the next 2 weeks. But more importantly, this is the person who hired and has mentored you for the past 3 years. So you certainly feel some loyalty to her. In addition, you believe she's being unfairly let go because of office politics. So you also feel some sympathy for her. You know she's the sole support of her family and she's concerned about finding another job. So yes, you want to copy the files to help her do this. All right? So yes, copy the files is a very viable answer. Now, I see that many people said that they would refuse to copy the files. And in fact, yes, you probably should refuse to copy the files, but how are you really going to do that? As the boss is standing right there, how are you going to say, no, I'm not going to do it? So although I do believe that that's what you should do, I'm not really sure that people would actually do that given the situation. And in the real life situation, this person copied the files. They felt uncomfortable about doing it, but nevertheless, they copied the files. Boss took the files with her. 2 weeks later, after the boss leaves, it still bothers this individual about what he's done. He then goes and speaks to the boss's boss and says to the boss's boss, listen, I copied these things. I felt uncomfortable about doing it, but I really felt like I had no other choice. So the boss's boss was not happy that this individual had copied the files. He could certainly understand the situation or the circumstances that this individual felt. So one of the reasons why I like this case is because not only is it a real life story, a true story, but it also illustrates something about how we make decisions. We often make unethical decisions, not because we are bad people, but because we are often affected by psychological biases, social and organizational factors, and situational influences. These biases, factors, and influences lead to weaknesses in how we process information and make decisions. And it's this that can lead to unethical behavior. So, one of the key points I want to make you aware of is this: there is a difference between unethical people and unethical behavior. Most of the people who get into trouble or who behave unethically are not actually bad people. They are affected by such factors as these: obedience to authority. Our boss asks us to do something and we do it without really thinking about the ethical issues of what our boss is asking us to do. We also have this conformity bias, this tendency to follow the crowd and to conform our behavior to that of our peers. So we see everybody else doing something and we go, well, they're doing it, so can we. Again, without really thinking about the underlying issues surrounding what all of these other people are doing. Incrementalism, the gradual shift towards unethical behavior. If you've ever read about fraud, Bernie Madoff, as a matter of fact, Bernie Madoff, who created the largest Ponzi scheme in American history, passed away yesterday. And he stole billions of dollars. My point in bringing this up is that Bernie Madoff did not wake up one morning and say, I'm going to steal billions of dollars from my clients. No, it happened slowly and over time. And this is really how most frauds and things such as that happen. It's a little bit, and it's a little bit more, and it's a little bit more until it's a full-blown fraud. Incrementalism. Lastly, we have a tendency to think that we are more ethical than we really are. And as a result, I'm more ethical than they are. It won't happen to me. And that is a very dangerous attitude to have. Why? Because when you are so confident about your own ethics, you often don't stop and think about the potential consequences or the perceptions of what you are doing before you do it. Now, one of the events that's happened in the United States recently, in which all four of these factors led to unethical behavior, was what happened on January 6th in Washington, D.C., when that huge mob of people stormed the Capitol. Well, firstly, they were obeying authority. They were obeying the speakers, including the president on the stage, who said, go storm the Capitol. It was conformity bias because everybody saw everybody else storming the Capitol, and they thought, well, if they're doing it, why can't we? Incrementalism, this happened slowly over time. They didn't go to that speech and say, let's storm the Capitol. As each speech went on, as the day went on, the crowd got more upset and hyped up, which ultimately led to them storming the Capitol. And lastly, if you would have asked anyone if what they were doing was wrong or unethical in the heat of the moment, they would have said no. So these factors are very powerful and can lead to even good people doing the wrong thing. So I love this quote, and it's very true. Ethics can be dangerous to your career because you may be called upon to do things that turn out to be unethical or illegal. Don't believe me? Here's a study done by Harvard University that found that many graduates received explicit instructions from their middle managers or felt strong organizational pressures to do things that they believed were sleazy, unethical, or sometimes illegal. Another Columbia University study found that 40% of graduates had been rewarded for taking some action they considered to be ethically troubling, while 31% of those who refused to act in ways they considered to be unethical believed that they were penalized for their choice, compared to less than 20% who felt they had been rewarded. So what does this mean? It means that the question is not if you will be asked to do something unethical when you go into the workplace. The question is, when will you be asked to do something when you go into the workplace? So here is a gentleman. His name is Fabrice Touré. He worked at Goldman Sachs right before the financial crisis, and he was found liable of 6 of 7 counts for defrauding investors in his role in this Abacus securities deal. In court, he said, I was a big team player. If there was something wrong with this transaction, wouldn't people have told me? This is a perfect example of obedience to authority. His boss said, hey, go out and sell this securities deal. And he did it without realizing that the deal was really bad for clients. And his boss was actually asking him to do something unethical. Another gentleman, Thomas Hayes, he was the only trader at that point cited by name in the LIBOR investigation. And for those of you who are not familiar with LIBOR, LIBOR stands for the London Interbank Offering Rate. It's the interest rate that banks charge each other for lending deposits and money. So on manipulating LIBOR, he said, who was I to question what they were doing? I thought it was weird, but that's how they did it. So within a few months, based on practices at the bank and feedback from his bosses, Mr. Hayes considered it part of his job. Again, conformity bias. He knew what was going on wasn't really right, but since everybody else was doing it, and again, his boss said, yeah, go ahead and do it, he did it. And then he got in trouble as a result. Last individual is Kweku Adubale. He was a trader who worked at Credit Suisse who lost $2.2 billion. That's billion with a B. And let me tell you, it's very hard for one person to lose $2.2 billion. At his trial, he told the jury, senior managers were aware of his actions and encouraged him to take risks. He also said circumventing the bank's rules was common practice, and I only got in trouble because I lost money. That's the irony of business in a way. Everybody loves you when you're generating profits or you're generating returns. Nobody knows you when you start generating losses. All right. So here's our next case. It's the gift. All right, I'll go back to the presentation. You are a portfolio manager in the international sector who travels to a foreign country to investigate investment opportunities for your institutional clients. The management of a large company you visit and a potentially attractive investment opportunity gives you a very expensive gift. Why don't we make the gift like a really nice watch, like a Rolex? So refusing the gift would be considered an insult in this country and harm the good relations that you have developed with the company's management. So accepting the gift is A, okay, because refusal in this instance would jeopardize an investment opportunity for your clients. B, probably okay if you give the gift to charity. C, probably not okay unless you tell your supervisor that you accepted the gift. D, it's not okay. Give you a moment to think about it and then to vote. Let's see, how are they coming in? See any questions? Oh, so while we're voting, I see a question from Victor Fuentes. Victor said, but if the research reports are released to the public, i.e. in an equity research firm. Okay, this goes back to the files. First of all, Victor, you do raise a point, but let me just say this. Most research reports are not released to the public. They're released to the clients of the firm. And the clients pay the firm either by investing their assets through a portfolio manager at the firm or whatever. They pay the firm, and in exchange, they receive the research reports. So the research reports are a valuable commodity that is the property of the firm, and the firm can decide who they want to distribute the reports to, but they generally are not available to the public until months after or at all sometimes. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
No problem. All right, keep those questions and comments coming, by the way. All right, so let's look at the results here. Wow, oh, I like this. It looks like almost neck and neck. 47% said it's not okay. 43% said probably not okay unless you tell your supervisor. 7% said okay. And I love this 3% said probably okay if you give the gift to charity. I like that answer. To me, I think that's the best answer. But let's talk about the issues here. All right, so to begin with, some of you may be interpreting the gift of this expensive watch perhaps as a form of bribery, right? But in some countries and in some cultures, giving expensive gifts may not really be a form of bribery. It's just the way that they do business. You know, here's a nice gift for you. Thank you for coming to our country, etc. So there may be no strings attached by accepting the gift. Okay. Now, I did say, and you thought it was a potentially attractive investment opportunity. And again, it says refusing the gift would be considered an insult in this country. So I could certainly understand people saying A, no problem whatsoever. I can also understand people saying probably not okay unless you tell your supervisor that you accepted the gift. I think that's also a really good answer, that you have to let your firm know what happened. Okay, so let's suppose you come back from the trip and you show your supervisor this beautiful Rolex watch. You go, supervisor, look at this nice watch they gave me. And your supervisor says, hey, that's great. You can keep the watch. And you're like, thank you very much. So let's suppose maybe 2 days later, you go visit one of your institutional clients to tell them about the trip you just came back from and the company that you saw. So you're meeting with your client, you're like, I just came back, I saw this great company, I think its profits have great potential in the future, I think it's going to be the new Apple or whatever. And your client gets very excited. He's very interested in investing in this company. So right then and there, he sits down and writes you a check and says, here, I want you to take this check and invest it in that company's stock. So as you reach for that check, the client sees that beautiful Rolex watch on your wrist and asks you, hey, where did you get that Rolex watch from? And what are you going to say? Are you going to tell the client the truth? Or are you going to tell the client, oh, it was a gift, and leave it at that? Well, if you said, if you told the client, well, I got it as a gift, that would actually be wrong because that's not completely true. Now, if you told the client the truth, oh yes, by the way, I got this beautiful watch from the company that I just recommended to you, how do you think that client is going to feel? That the client is going to feel that your independence and objectivity has been compromised, and that the only reason why you are recommending this company to him or her is because they gave you that expensive watch. Now, unfortunately, as I said earlier, you believed while you were there that the company was a really attractive investment opportunity. Unfortunately, however, you can talk to this client until forever, and they are not going to believe you, most probably. They are going to think that the only reason why you are recommending it is because they gave you the expensive watch. So now let's go to item D. It's not okay. Everybody, about 48% of the people said, 45% said it's not okay. Well, let's think about this. Okay, so let's suppose it's your last night in the country, and the company takes you out for a big dinner to celebrate your visit and to send you off. At the end of the dinner, the president of the company calls you up on stage and says, hey, we would like to give this small token of our appreciation to you as a thank you for visiting our country and our company. And they give you the Rolex watch. Well, what are you going to do? You're not going to say, I don't want this watch. I refuse to take it right there on stage, because you, in fact, will then embarrass the gift giver and probably harm the good relations that you have developed with this company. So what do? Well, there are a couple of alternatives that you have. One is you could accept the gift on behalf of your company, and then when you return home, actually give the gift to the company and say, hey, I received this as a gift. I couldn't refuse it. I accepted it on behalf of the company. Or two, after receiving the gift, once off to the side or in a quiet moment before the dinner ends, you can go up to the gift giver and say, thank you very much for this wonderful gift. Unfortunately, my company has a policy that will not permit me to accept gifts as expensive as this one. So thank you very much, but I have to refuse it. So by giving a refusal in that way, everybody saves face. The gift giver, you, and hopefully the relationship is still going to be maintained. All right? But very important. So I love this cartoon. It says, run this by the legal department, but run super fast so the ethics department doesn't see it. Excuse me. Well, this goes to emphasize, as I said earlier, there's a difference between the law and ethics. The law really tells us what we can and cannot do. Ethics really focuses upon what we should and should not do. And there are a lot of things that we can do because they're legal, but we still shouldn't do because they are unethical. All right? So here are some, Here are some fundamental ethical principles. These are ethical principles that are global in nature, that not only apply to the investment industry, but also apply to the accounting industry, the medical industry, the legal industry, etc. And the first principle is this: client interest come first, always. Client interests come before your personal interest or the interest of your firm. It's important for us to maintain our independence and objectivity, as well as the perception of our independence and objectivity. So we should refrain from accepting any gifts, or including food, entertainment, whatever, that's going to give the appearance that your independence and objectivity has been compromised. We should always strive to avoid conflicts of interest. But as I said earlier, when you're a stockbroker and you work on commission, you can't avoid that conflict of interest. So what is the best way to manage it? It's through full and fair disclosure, so that you're giving your client the opportunity to make an informed decision. So you tell your client, yes, I think this is a good investment, but I also have to tell you that I will receive a commission if you do, in fact, invest in this product. Preservation of confidentiality. In this day of WhatsApp, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, etc., it's important that we not only preserve our clients' confidentiality, but that we also preserve our employers' confidentiality as well. We should deal fairly with all of our clients. We shouldn't give a benefit to one group of clients and disadvantage another group of clients. And lastly, when we're conducting securities analysis or making portfolio recommendations, we should use reasonable care to ensure that we have been thorough, and prudent judgment to ensure that that investment recommendation is suitable for the client. Please note that all 7 of these principles are embodied in the CFA Institute Code of Ethics and Standards of Professional Conduct. By the way, and I'm sure Professor Heber will tell you this, our code and standards, as well as our Standards of Practice Handbook, are free to everyone on our website. All right? And so do you think this is a good time for me to stop?
Yes, this is perfect. I mean, thank you so much.
No problem. I want you to know, enjoy the ethics challenge. It should be an enjoyable as well as a learning experience. So I wish everyone the best of luck. And I want to thank CFA Society Mexico for organizing not only this workshop, but also organizing the ethics challenge as well. So I will sign off here.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Michael. It's always a privilege and a joy to listen to you. Thank you. Propongo que para el resto del kickoff lo hacemos en español. Creo que es un poquito más fluido. La mayoría hablamos mejor español. Entonces, Yo voy a seguir con el mismo orden de eventos que había establecido antes del workshop de Michael McMillan. Y pues por supuesto, very insightful, excellent workshop. Thank you so much. Empezamos con una introducción, algunas fechas, la rúbrica, reglas, un repaso muy breve del Code of Ethics y Standard Professional Conduct, Ethical Decision Making Framework, los equipos y también muy resumido mi presentación sobre el case study, algunos de los puntos principales del estudio de caso que vamos a ver. ¿Okay? Pues es una competencia entre equipos de universidades. Los casos se desarrollan con CFA Institute y el punto aquí es aplicar Code of Ethics y Standards of Professional Conduct. No simplemente lo que a mí se me ocurre o lo que yo pienso o lo que yo siento que sería correcto. Varios de estos conflictos de interés son un poquito más complicados de lo que uno podría pensar inicialmente. Y existe un código de ética que tiene décadas de gente de muy alto nivel examinando muy bien los diferentes conflictos de interés y ya tiene varias actualizaciones. Creo que ahorita estamos con la edición número 11 del Standards of Practice Handbook. Entonces, mejor investiguen, leen muy bien ese libro, el libro grande que va más allá de simplemente los estándares, es el Standards of Practice Handbook. Incluye explicaciones y mini casos para que puedan ver la aplicación de diferentes estándares en diferentes posibles situaciones del mundo profesional. Entonces, como tienen más de un mes para preparar este caso, investiguen y basen todas sus respuestas en el Standards of Practice Handbook. Van a ver que eso enriquece mucho. ¿Okay? Equipos de 3 a 5 alumnos preparan su presentación. Va a ser 10 minutos de presentación seguido por 10 minutos de preguntas y respuestas ante jueces. Nuevamente, enfocado sobre Code of Ethics, Standard of Professional Conduct. Primero, si hubo violación o no. Segundo, ¿qué harían para que no se repitan este tipo de violación? How would you address the various violations? Okay? You evaluate the case, highlight the violations, make recommendations for action. También todo equipo debería tener un mentor. Si no tiene un mentor, acercan con el director de su carrera para pedir un mentor que no debería hacer ni análisis ni producir recomendaciones, simplemente les ayuda con preguntas que pueden tener. Las fechas principales, el kickoff obviamente es ahorita. La ronda semifinal será el jueves 20 de mayo a las 6:30. Guillermina va a mandar la liga, va a ser muy parecida a esta. Tenemos 8 equipos. Lo que haremos entonces sería dividirnos en 2 breakout rooms con estos 8 equipos y en esos breakout rooms, uno por uno presentarán un equipo. Lo hemos hecho el año pasado. Un equipo está en cada breakout room presentando ante los jueces. Los jueces van a ser miembros del CFA Society, quizás un candidato nivel 3, pero la mayoría ya CFA Charter Holders que conocen muy bien el código ética. De los 2 breakout rooms vamos a elegir, o bueno, los jueces van a elegir un equipo ganador de cada breakout room y después vamos a tener la competencia final inmediatamente después para tener un equipo ganador. Esta es la rúbrica, ya lo deberían de tener en sus correos electrónicos. Vemos qué es importante si identificaron las violaciones del código ética, qué recomendaron. Entonces, 60 puntos viene de identificar violaciones. Unos 15 puntos de tener un plan para resolver estos temas, si el plan es práctica, si es implementable. Después, qué tan persuasivos son. Y en preguntas y respuestas, si estuvieron preparados para las preguntas que llegaron. Y obviamente, los 3 a 5 integrantes del equipo, todos deberían participar, no solo en la presentación, pero también en las preguntas y respuestas. Quisiera compartir esto rápidamente. Generalmente sabemos que puede haber un juez que califica más alto, un juez que califica más bajo. O sea, hay jueces que califican alto a todos y jueces que califican bajo a todos. Y quizás el juez que califica bajo tiene un rango de puntos de 20 y el juez que califica alto tiene un rango de puntos de 5, algo así. Tenemos una manera de hacer que ese tipo de cosas no sean el factor determinante. Entonces, de una forma muy rápida, tomamos todas las calificaciones de los jueces. La calificación más alta se da un score de 1, la que sigue de 2, etc. Y después lo que hacemos es sumamos estas y la más baja de estas es el equipo ganador. Entonces, si hay un juez con un rango alto en sus calificaciones y otro con un rango bajo, eso no va a afectar a nadie. Bien, el código de ética, actuar con integridad, competencia, diligencia, respeto, poner la integridad de la profesión de inversiones y los intereses de los clientes por encima de tus propios intereses, utilizar cuidado razonable, juicio independiente, with independence, objectivity, reasonable bias, reasonable basis, due diligence, not reasonable bias, reasonable basis, due diligence. Todo esto cuando estamos haciendo análisis, recomendaciones, acciones, cualquier otra actividad profesional. Practicar y incentivar a los demás a también practicar de una manera profesional y ética, promover la integridad y viabilidad de los mercados de capital. A final de cuentas, esto es lo que estamos buscando en el Code of Ethics, Standard Professional Conduct, ser felices, ser buenas personas, pero también captar, merecer, conservar la confianza del público. La ética es primordial, es central. Si el público confiara en nosotros, invirtiera más, no solo el público inversionista tendría mayores retornos ajustados por riesgo, mayor valor neto, pero también las empresas con mayores perspectivas de crecimiento y generación de empleo serían las empresas que reciben más financiamiento y las empresas que realmente no van a añadir mucho valor dejarían de recibir financiamiento que no van a aprovechar. Entonces, estamos maximizando, potencializando el PIB, el crecimiento, el empleo, la innovación, florecimiento humano. Estamos haciendo todo esto, esto es central. Es un sector central, crucial, y lamentablemente tenemos una reputación bien merecida de faltas éticas. Estamos hablando recientemente de Bernie Madoff, podríamos hablar, hay una lista enorme de faltas de ética. Nos consideran más como Wall Street, Wolf of Wall Street, como Bobby Axelrod, que como la gente que realmente está en el centro de un proceso dando recursos escasos a los proyectos más rentables. Eso es lo que deberíamos de ser y no somos percibidos así. Entonces, por eso el código ética es tan importante, por eso la ética en el sector bursátil es tan importante, porque estamos en el centro de todo. Rápidamente, pero creo que es importante, ¿por qué voy a presentar estos? Porque al momento de analizar el caso, no estamos yendo con nuestros instintos, con nuestras opiniones, con nuestras emociones. Tenemos que basarlo sobre este código de ética, que está muy bien pensada, que tiene décadas de refinamientos y de gente de diferentes lados, diferentes posturas en la industria que han aportado no solo a la creación, pero también a la actualización y mejora del código ética. Entonces empezamos con conocer la ley y el código ética y cumplir con eso. Decir, no sabía que eso era ilegal, no es pretexto. Independencia y objetividad. En el workshop de Michael... Sí, adelante. No, perdón. Entonces, en el workshop de Michael McMillan vimos que hay varios conflictos de interés, varias maneras en que alguien puede presionarte y quizás tú inclusive piensas que estás haciendo una decisión ética sin presiones, pero permitiste que un cliente te regalara un reloj o aceptaste viajes caros, etc. Misrepresentation va más allá que mentira. Puedes engañar sin mentir, decir verdades a medias. Bueno, quizás no mentiste, pero sí es misrepresentation, sí es engaño. por lo tanto es una falta de ética. Misconduct, por supuesto. Material non-public information, para que algo sea considerado insider trading o información privilegiada, lo cual merma la eficiencia de los mercados. Tiene que ser material la información y tiene que ser no pública. Market manipulation, que si se dan cuenta, no solo es precios, pero también volumen. Inflar artificialmente el volumen también es manipulación de mercado, porque los grandes inversionistas institucionales ven volumen antes de decidir si invertir en una acción o no, para saber si pueden salir. Y si el volumen era ficticio, pues sí estamos también reduciendo la eficiencia de los mercados y el potencial de este sector para maximizar el PIB. Deber a los clientes es el más largo de los 7 estándares, el más importante y donde los reguladores reciben más quejas. Leal, prudente, tener un cuidado, manejar el dinero del cliente como si fuera tu dinero, tratar tus clientes justamente. El suitability es, pues cada cliente tiene un diferente nivel de adversión o apetito por el riesgo. No deberías poner un cliente muy conservador en una inversión muy riesgosa. Podríamos pensar, pues mayor riesgo, mayor retorno, sí, pero si ese cliente cuando cae 15% vende todo, y otro cliente cuando cae 15% hubiera dicho, no, pues todo está en ganga, todo está barato, le meto más dinero. Le hiciste daño al cliente conservador invirtiendo agresivamente, y un cliente agresivo hubiera aprovechado de esa inversión más agresiva. Entonces, entender que podemos causar daño si no tomamos en cuenta el suitability. Performance presentation. Hay muchas maneras de reportar la misma realidad económica. Hay unas que son más, no quiero decir honestas, sí son más éticas, pero que representan de una forma más realista la realidad económica. Investigan ese punto, es importante. Conservar la confidencialidad de los clientes. Tienes un deber, por supuesto, a tu empleador. Si tienes otras compensaciones, si eres supervisador, también tienes un deber hacia tus empleados. Y tener, cuando haces recomendaciones, análisis, recomendaciones y acciones, diligence and reasonable basis. Este punto resume de alguna forma. Michael McMillan habló mucho del médico y cómo tenemos mucha confianza en el médico. Imaginemos que yo voy a un médico y no hizo los estudios y quizás hizo lo que él aprendió hace 40 años en la universidad y hay más estudios más recientes, evidencia de que eso no funciona, o quizás su especialidad es otra y por lo tanto, sin haber hecho los estudios, me recomienda hacer algo. No hubo ni malicia y él no sabía lo que estaba haciendo, pero me hizo daño. Bueno, lo mismo puede pasar si yo recomiendo acciones, inversiones, sin haberlos estudiado antes. Sin querer mentir, sin malicia, se puede hacer daño. Entonces, hay que merecer la opinión antes de compartirla. ¿Y cómo lo merecemos? Diligencia, reasonable basis, tenemos que ser thorough, tenemos que ser completos, rigurosos en nuestro análisis, y salvaguardar y a veces pelear ferozmente para salvaguardar nuestra independencia y objetividad. ¿Cómo comunicamos con los clientes? Esta comunicación con clientes se liga un poquito con lo que vimos en Performance Presentation. Divulgar conflictos, distinguir entre hechos y opiniones. Nuevamente, conflictos de interés. Tratamos de evitar los conflictos, pero si existe un conflicto, transparencia. Priority of transactions, poner los intereses del público inversionista, después de los clientes, después el empleador y por último nuestros intereses. Ahora, no significa que no somos importantes y que no tenemos derechos. Nuestro interés, al trabajar por un empleador, pues recibimos un salario. Después de hacer las transacciones de los clientes, por supuesto, ahí sí tenemos el derecho, siempre y cuando no estamos utilizando información material no pública, a también invertir nuestro dinero. Pero después, referral fees, en esta industria como en muchos, pues pedimos referencias. ¿Okay? Y como las referencias pueden valer mucho, podría yo pagar a alguien por referir clientes a mí. Bueno, si ese cliente que viene a mí sabe que su amigo fue pagado, sobre aviso no hay engaño. Si no supo, podríamos dejar un mal sabor de boca o una mala percepción. Y por último, como CFA Institute Member or Candidate, utilizar la designación, salvaguardar la integridad del examen. En términos muy generales, estos son los estándares de conducta profesional. Bueno, código ética y estándares de conducta profesional. Deberían tener todos en su correo el libro completo. Ay, no recuerdo si son más de 300 páginas o casi 300 páginas por ahí. Léenlo, estúdienlo. Si hay una incertidumbre cuando el equipo está debatiendo algún punto del caso, investiguen, recurren. Esa es la fuente principal para lo que estamos haciendo aquí. Utilizamos estas herramientas. Primero vamos a identificar los conflictos. Después vamos a considerar cuáles sesgos existen, qué podría hacer que una buena persona haga malas decisiones, si hay acciones alternativas. ¿Por qué? Porque más allá de identificar, vamos a también proponer alternativas y soluciones. Después actuamos, decidimos y por último hay que reflexionar. ¿Salió como yo quería? ¿O algo falló? Entonces, estos son los 4 puntos. Identify, consider, act, reflect. Y he tratado de buscar como un mnemonic device, como una manera de recordarlo. I can act rationally, I care, utilizando el E de reflect. Es un obra en proceso. Estoy todavía buscando un buen acrónimo, un buen mnemonic device. Si a ustedes les ocurre algo mejor que las 4 que puse aquí, me lo mandan para que yo también utilizarlo cuando enseño esto. Estoy buscando algo que el ICAR, para que recordamos bien el Ethical Decision Making Framework. Tenemos, como se había mencionado, tenemos 8 equipos en esta que es básicamente la primera edición a nivel nacional, abierto a todo el público. Esperamos que esto vaya creciendo, pero para una primera edición, 8 equipos, estamos 8 universidades, vamos bastante bien. Universidad Iberoamericana, espero que estén presentes. Bienvenidos, muchas gracias. TEC de Monterrey, Campus Ciudad de México, muchas gracias por su participación. Vamos a, muchísimas gracias. Campus San Luis Potosí, espero que estén aquí, muchas gracias. Santa Fe, Toluca, también tenemos el UDLAP, Universidad Panamericana y UPUAP, creo que se dice la Universidad Popular Autónoma del Estado de Puebla. Entonces, todos ustedes deberían de estar muy orgullosos de participar y esos también son sus competidores. De la Universidad Iberoamericana, este es la directora y este es el equipo. Muchísimas gracias y bienvenidos.
Gracias.
Del TEC de Monterrey, Ciudad de México, este es el equipo. Bienvenidos, muchas gracias. De Campus San Luis Potosí, bienvenidos todos, muchísimas gracias. Estamos al inicio de un reto interesante. Aunque el Research Challenge tiene más fama porque estamos más ligados ahí al proceso real de hacer el dinero, el Ethics Challenge creo que puede ser en esencia más importante porque es el inicio y el fin de todo lo que hacemos en el CFA Institute y porque a final de cuentas el mejor análisis bursátil de flujos proyectados y descontados no sirve si el público no cree en nosotros. Lo que yo busco hacer, lo que Michael McMillan busca hacer, lo que todo el CFA Institute y todo el CFA Society buscamos es ganar, merecer y conservar el público, la confianza del público para que más gente invierte con nosotros, para que inversionistas ganen más dinero y para que empresas tengan más recursos, bueno, los que realmente van a generar valor, tengan esos recursos para generar valor, innovación, empleo. Eso para mí es fascinante y esencial y primordial. Campus Santa Fe, su directora. Este es el equipo de Campus Santa Fe. Bienvenidos, muchísimas gracias. Campus Toluca. Tenemos, perdón, no estoy leyendo todos los nombres, pero estos son los integrantes de los equipos. Muchísimas gracias. Bienvenidos, vamos con todo. UDLAP. tenemos el mentor, Fernando Forcada Gastel. Acuden a él, no va a dar respuestas, no debería hacer ningún análisis ni trabajar en la presentación, pero debería de apoyarles con preguntas. UP Guadalajara, por supuesto, y la Universidad Popular Autónoma del Estado de México. Bienvenidos, muchas gracias. Quisiera de una forma muy resumida, porque si no lo hago muy resumida, podría compartir quizás algunos de mis sesgos y eso no se vale. Bueno, mis sesgos o opiniones preliminares que podrían ayudar a equipos a llegar a algunas respuestas y quiero evitar hacer eso, pero al mismo tiempo simplemente introducir brevemente. Hay que reconocer René Blasky y obviamente Michael McMillan también apoyó con este caso. Guillermina va a mandar el caso hoy a todos los participantes. Términos muy generales, es un equity research firm, es como analista independiente, pues es una empresa que hace análisis bursátil separada de una casa de bolsa, por lo tanto tienen que cobrar una suscripción anual por su investigación. También, si los clientes necesitan investigación de empresas que ellos no cubren, tienen unos broker dealers, unas casas de bolsa con quien tienen relación, con quien hayan tenido algún acercamiento y dicen que sí cumplen con ciertos estándares. También existe un programa de referencias. Les había mencionado qué pasa con los programas de referencias, cuáles son algunos de los problemas, investigan mejor en Standard Professional Conduct. El caso también cubre detalles como si vas a viajar para visitar una empresa, comunicación con clientes y qué haces si tienes cuentas, inversiones personales. Entonces, creo que no he dado ninguna indicación de mi lado de los detalles posibles y solo para repetir, recalcar, jueves 20 de mayo a las 6:30 vamos a conectar nuevamente. Guillermina va a mandar la liga a todos ustedes. Vamos a separar en 2 breakout rooms para la ronda semifinal, 4 equipos en cada breakout room. Cada equipo tiene 10 minutos para presentar, seguido por 10 minutos de preguntas y respuestas. De cada cuarto de los breakout rooms se va a elegir un equipo ganador y ese equipo ganador va a competir en la competencia final inmediatamente después de la ronda semifinal. ¿Tenemos preguntas?
Todo bien de mi parte.
Ok. Ok, Guillermina dice que el caso se va a mandar después del evento. Sí, sí, en eso habíamos quedado. Perfecto. Entonces, el caso completo es un caso bien escrito porque tiene muchos conflictos de interés, porque hay detalles que podrían o podrían no ser faltas de ética. Por eso me gusta este caso. El caso fue bien escrito porque las respuestas no son fáciles. Hay que pensarlos un poquito, hay que investigar hasta qué punto se vale y hasta qué punto ya me excedí. Y por favor, yo creo que van a disfrutar mucho el caso, van a disfrutar mucho las interacciones valiosas entre los equipos, debatiendo el sí o el no y el por qué y después qué hacemos. Muchísimas felicidades a todos. Muchísimas gracias a todos. Sigo aquí para cualquier pregunta. Preguntas, dudas, comentarios. ¿Alguna orden específica para las presentaciones o se va a sortear? Sí, va a ser no solo el orden, pero también cuáles equipos van a cuál breakout room. Eso lo vamos a hacer el día del semifinal y final. Los primeros 10 minutos les voy a presentar lo que salga completamente aleatoriamente. Excel Random Number Generator, o sea, números aleatorios en Excel, ¿ok? Que si hay que enviar previamente la presentación, para el Research Challenge sí lo hacemos, nunca lo hemos pedido para el Ethics Challenge. Pues a final de cuentas, tú llegas y en el momento presentas ante los jueces y, o sea, sí va a haber alguien en ambas salas viendo el tiempo, cuidando mucho el tiempo, se corta, de hecho van a tener poder como co-hosts de ponerte en mute si excediste el tiempo, sí, pero en ese momento será el primer momento cuando jueces o cualquier persona del CFA Society se entera de sus conclusiones, de su análisis. Se llega ese día con la presentación. Buena idea que todos los integrantes del equipo lo tengan, por si alguien tenga fallas con su laptop, si la presentación tenga problemas, si hay un tema del internet, etc. Obviamente, bien vestidos, aunque estamos en casita, pero sí formales. Saco, corbata, etc. Ensayan también entre equipo, no solo la parte de la presentación, pero también el question and answers, porque esa es parte también de la calificación. Y aunque en la rúbrica quizás recuerdo, creo que era 5%, pero un argumento bien presentado es más convincente y puede subir la calificación en otras áreas si ya lo ensayaron varias veces, si han determinado para presentaciones, para preguntas no esperadas a quien le toca, cuáles son las áreas de competencia para cada presentador. Y la pregunta aquí era, ¿en inglés? No. Sí habíamos hecho que, así como el Research Challenge es en inglés, el Ethics Challenge también es inglés. Sí, la presentación sí debería ser en PowerPoint. PowerPoint o algo similar si quieren innovar un poquito, pero lo básico es utilizar una presentación PowerPoint. No es simplemente hablar, o sea, guías un poquito más a tus escuchas, a tus jueces, a tu audiencia. Si tienes los bullets bien escritos, por favor, sin faltas de ortografía en las presentaciones. Bueno, si estuviéramos en tiempos normales y presenciales, este sería el momento para las fotos, todos juntos, los aplausos, un pequeño cóctel, etc. La verdad es que quisiera hacer eso. Esta pandemia ya se me ha hecho largo, pero ese ya sería el momento para todos juntos hacer la foto. Realizar un trabajo por escrito además de la presentación. Sí lo habíamos hecho en o sea, se hace eso en el Research Challenge. Aquí, y en el Research Challenge, eso es como un prefiltro antes de competir en la competencia real. Aquí no tenemos eso. Aquí vamos directamente a la presentación sin trabajo por escrito previo. Entre ustedes hace sentido, pero no hay que mandarlo a nosotros. Entre ustedes hace sentido que desarrollen algo. Yo me doy cuenta que cuando siento para escribir algo, tengo más ideas que cuando simplemente estoy hablando. Entonces, si quieren hacer algo interno, pero no es parte de la competencia que hay que mandar, no es un deliverable. Es llegar, tener su presentación, compartir la presentación, platicando, inclusive no solo ensayaría preguntas y respuestas y la presentación, pero como esto es para mis gustos igual de importante que el Research Challenge, si no más, también ensayen transiciones de un miembro a otro del equipo, ensayen que el tiempo, o sea, si tienes 10 minutos y terminas en 8, se ve mal. Si tienes 10 minutos y al minuto 10 solo has dicho la mitad de lo que querías decir, también se ve mal. O sea, tratar de pegarle al tiempo de ser posible más o menos 15 segundos. O sea, realmente tener el tiempo muy bien también. Aprovechar todos los 10 minutos que ni sobre ni falte para decir todo lo que quieren decir. Y utilizar todo el tiempo. Y sí, las presentaciones y question and answer serán en inglés. Pues perfecto. ¿Alguna otra pregunta? Hay tiempo quizás para 2 preguntas adicionales y cerraríamos la sesión del kickoff. Se mandarían los casos y a partir de recibir los casos, estudian bien el caso, estudian Code of Ethics, Standard Professional Conduct, empiezan a debatir. El debate en equipo es valioso. Es valioso el debate en equipo precisamente porque va a haber diferencias de opiniones, los cuales nos enriquecen. Si no hay ninguna diferencia de opinión en tu equipo, debería preocuparte más. Pero sí, que haya diferencias en opiniones, que tengan que recurrir a la fuente principal, que es el Standards of Practice Handbook, que creo que eso ya se mandó. Si no, pues Guille también puede mandar eso junto con el caso, para que pues tengan, esos son los dos recursos principales, el caso y el Standards of Practice Handbook. Bien. ¿Alguna otra pregunta? Perdón, Luis, te escuchamos, pero un poquito entrecortado. Muy bien. Pues felicidades a todos por ser seleccionados por sus respectivas universidades. Eso ya de entrada es un enorme logro. Muchísimas gracias a todos por su participación en hacer la primera ronda de esta competencia un éxito. Vamos a estudiar, vamos a formar, vamos a debatir y muchísimas felicidades, muchísimo éxito a todos los equipos. Muchas gracias.
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 Gracias.